Hey, good people, how you doing? David Taub here, co-creator of NextLevelGuitar.com. Thanks for joining me, and today I'm kicking off a whole series of lessons on melodic guitar soloing and how to create solos and get ideas and put lick ideas together using scales and arpeggios and all kinds of great stuff. And we're going to start off really simple and basic, easy, even if you're just starting your lead guitar journey. And then as the lessons progress, and there's going to be a couple in this series, so be sure and watch them all. We're going to get into, you know, more intermediate, more advanced stuff, and we'll keep stacking it up as you build these devices and these improvisational techniques and all kinds of fun stuff. We'll do some movie trivia along the way. We'll have some fun, and because that's what guitar playing, you know, should be all about, right? Having fun, enjoying this beautiful instrument. We're going to start off with real basic concepts, and we're going to build some melodic lick ideas. So when you're playing over a jam track, you always want to know the chords you're playing over, because remember, it's the chords that give you the roadmap to what you can use solo and improvisation wise. So always know the chords. The key is just a small part of it. And this is very important because we're going to be playing a little melodically, little motifs over each chord. And we're going to be using some very cool concepts. We're going to be using the concepts of repetition and the concepts of varying your licks and nuance and all these things where we're taking the notes of a certain scale we'll use, because scales are the building blocks for our licks, right? And we're going to be taking those notes and doing interesting things with them. And we're going to be using the concept of space. If you notice how I was playing in the beginning of this lesson, I was leaving space in between the licks. That's very important. The concept of repetition, we're going to be repeating our licks and varying them a little bit. Repetition is so important in anything audio, right? Because what do they always say, you know, like in songs, get to the hook, get to that chorus, you know, that repeated part of the song that sticks in everybody's head, and that's what we remember, right? Remember that melody, remember the chorus, get to it quick. And that's true in all kinds of audio stuff, you know, like even like in broadcasting, some of the greatest sports broadcasting moments in history, like that one, you probably heard that shot heard around the world, you know, the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant, you know, one of the most famous moments in the early 50s when the Giants beat the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the announcer, the Giants win the pennant. I'm sure everyone's heard that, but just banging it over your head, you know, repeatedly, and that's what builds that drama, you know. Like Howard Cosell used to do that when he used to call fights, you know, like when George Foreman beat Joe Frazier, you know, down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier.
Down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier, down goes
Frazier. He would keep repeating that, you know, and there's a lot of power and a lot of drama in that, and that's what we want to create in our solos, right? The progression that we're soloing over, we were in the key of C major, real simple. C major 7, to an A minor chord. So if you have a looper or garage band or a looper pedal, lay that down, just a couple measures per chord. I just created that jam track in GarageBand. Playing over jam tracks is just an invaluable tool for the guitar player to practice his skills, refine his art. So let's go over a few scale shapes. So C major I picked for this because it's the only major key with no sharps or flats. The notes in a C major scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, okay? We want to sound a little different though. You could play C major scales over the entire progression, it'll sound good. But let's change one note, and we're going to use the Lydian mode, and don't worry if you don't know what that means, I'll explain it later. All we're going to do is we're going to make the fourth note, instead of playing an F, we're going to play an F sharp. So it'll be C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, okay? So it's only one note difference, but I think that one note is very, very hip. And playing this Lydian mode, all you have to do is just think of it as it's just a variation of a major scale. That's all the modes are. They're just variations of major scales. We're going to use this shape here starting on our root note C, because C is what we're going to be coming back to and resolving a lot too, especially over the C major chord, C major 7th chord. And Lydian sounds awesome over major 7th chords. So let's play this shape here, starting on the 3rd fret of the A string. Let's go in another shape. Let's go off of this C note here. See our C's? And we're going to use these to come up with some melodic ideas. So how do you do that? How do you start putting ideas together? Well, what I do a lot of times is I'll just play the chord, just loop the chord you're playing over, and then just play that scale. And find out what notes sound good to your ears, or combinations of notes sound good to your ears. For instance, I really like this, that B to the C. That B note is the major 7th, right? That's why it sounds so hip. The 7th in the scale, B to C. I really like that movement, right? And I also like, because we're using it F sharp, that F sharp to the G, and the B to the C. Find the notes that you like, and then find them in different parts of the neck. And that's kind of how I started to build this, like I did in the intro, right? So you have a B to C. We're taking here at the high E string, right? That's at the 8th and 7th frets. Then we have it again here on the G string at the 5th and 4th frets. Then we have it again here at the A string, 2nd and 3rd frets, right? And we have it here up at the 13th and 12th frets on the B string, right? There's another one here. All B to C intervals, because you can use those to hop around and get those little differences in tone. That's the riff I was playing a lot, because I was going B, C, G. Remember I said I like that F sharp to G. So I was doing a little pull off. Now I took all the distortion and delay off, and I'm playing on the neck pickup throughout this whole series of lessons, because I want a little warmer, kind of more throatier tone. Played it in those 3 octaves, and then I just found something to connect it. Just going right down. Remember, this is right in that scale I showed you. Right? So just fool around with those notes. Put on the track and just try to come up with something that sounds melodic to your ears. Now I got to get to here, right? Because there's my C, B, G. So all I do is I connected it, right? I connected it using the scale shape. And that's what I was doing in the intro. So I was just going to the D note, 7th fret on the G string, and pulling that down a whole step to the C, and then pulling off and landing on that G. And then same thing again. I go up to the D note on the A string and end on the G. So you get this cool 3-octave kind of movement, but all it is the same basic 3 notes. And I add the D. Now notice, I'm not going after that sound, that picked sound that's right on the 8th note. It's a little bit, take your time. See, I'm sliding the notes, right? Put the track on, and then just start messing around with notes in that scale shapes that I showed you. See, there's the A minor chord. Let's wait for the C major 7 to come around. Here we go. And let's just try that lick. We'll just mess around. Just playing those scale shapes. Sliding around. See that B to C? Really love that sound. So you see, just by putting on the track and messing around, you'll come up with these notes, especially since I was hovering around the B to C, and that F sharp to G, that you really like. And then you just start to create. See, here's that same lick, but it's going to sound a little different played up high and on different strings. And I did that in the solo. Later in the solo, I came back to. So you start to vary the lick a little bit. Okay? Play it twice. Slide into it. Any little thing that you could do to vary the lick a little bit, change the rhythm up, is going to give you a different sound, but still keep that melodic idea going, right? And that's what we want. Okay, so we found something that we like over the C major 7th chord. And now let's try to find something that we like over the A minor. Do something more in A minor. And you probably are saying, well, C major, it's the same notes as A minor. Yes, but we really have to kind of switch emphasis to our A's now. And that's what we're going to do here. And you could play A minor pentatonic and blues for your bluesy rock guys or your bluesy guys. And I was doing that a little bit too in the intro. See, so we're combining our ideas, soloing over each chord. Don't let it intimidate. It's pretty easy because the chords are moving very slowly here. So you have plenty of time to change and give breath and space in your playing. It's very important. Over the A minor chord, let's come up with a melodic idea. I'll show you what I came up with. An idea like that. And all I did was I basically took a piece of like this A minor triad. Triad is just 3 notes, 3-note chord, and this is minor. A, basically it's an A minor chord, which the notes are A, C, and E. So I find my A up here. Here's my C and E. So I took a little variation of that. So I'm playing this double stop. There's my C note. I'm sorry, there's my E note. There's my A note. And I'll grab the C here. But I played at first just this double stop. Right? But when you add distortion, that sounds really cool. Slide into that double stop. And then I hit the B note, which I really like in the key of A minor. Again, that adds a lot of drama. That B or 9th in that key, it's a very lonely sounding note. It has a lot of drama. I really like it. You hear that? You know what that is? That is the sound of inevitability. Quick quiz. What movie is that from? One of my all-time favorite movie villains said that line in a movie. Do you know it? Agent Smith from The Matrix. One of my favorite movies, right? What a great job that villain, what he did in that movie. That was awesome.
You hear that, Mr. Anderson? That is the sound of inevitability.
All right, so, and then what I did later, as I started to vary that little, I grabbed the B note at the 12th fret B string, the C note on the 13th fret, and then also you can grab the high, there's our E, completing the triad on the high E string. So, see, I slid up to it that time. Right? All these little things you could really do. And then I slid out of it and let the notes breathe more. Right? All within this little A minor triad, and that's over the A minor chord. And if you notice later on in that solo, I went back to that. I even did something like this. Right? And I played those first same 2 notes because I want to have that repeating kind of thematic theme. And I just went right up the scale. B, C, D, and E. And it ended on the E, right? And that was pretty cool. and I kind of... And I kind of did this little A minor arpeggio to get into it. Right? So there again, I'm creating drama using these melodic ideas. Now something else that I'm doing is I'm using subtle use of the whammy bar or tremolo arm. And I'm doing that again to create more variance, because when I vibrato a note, I have a pretty strong vibrato. Right? And if I want to really vibrato a note, but here I just want to subtly give it a little vibrato. So I find, you know, that sounds very different than this, right? Just very subtle use of the bar. I'm not really digging down with it because I don't want to knock the guitar out of tune. But I just want to just subtly add a little bit of vibrato. And again, that differences, as opposed to my finger vibrato, is going to add that variance. That subtle use of the vibrato of the tremolo arm makes a big difference. And if you want to hear a guy who's an absolute master of that, listen to David Gilmour. Anything Pink Floyd. The guy's a genius, and his use of the bar, you could really hear it in his solos, and his use of space. Space is so important. So lots of space, put on the track and just get lost. And slide around to those notes in the scales that I showed you, and you'll be coming up with all kinds of different melodic ideas. And then try and just vary them a little bit. Use, you know, the little bit of variances with the vibrato, with your finger vibrato, with the arm. Double up on the notes. Slide. All different combinations. So when it goes to the A minor chord too, throw in all your A minor, pentatonic, and blues. You know, and focus on those A notes. You probably know those scales already, right? You're probably saying, I know that already. Well, look at the big brain on Brad. What movie was that from? Again, one of my favorite movies. What movie and what actor said it? Jules. Pulp Fiction. Incredible movie. You got to see it, man. That was such a great character. He did such a great job in that movie. He was such a badass.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you.
Here's another really cool lick. Like I told you, I like those B to C's, and then I like that F sharp to G. So play that from one end of the neck to the other, just those two notes. But when you put it together in a riff, it sounds really good. B, C, F sharp, G, B, C, F sharp, G, B, C, F sharp, G, B, C. Right? So when you throw it in a lick, but that's just taking those intervals I liked and running them up and down, right? Finding them at different places on the neck. Repeating your licks, varying them. Repetition, repetition, repetition.
Down goes Fraser! Down goes Fraser!
Right? You could do it easy. Okay, so tune into the next lesson in this series as we're going to go further into things we could do over this progression. We're going to get a little bit more intense. You can do it. Click on that link below for the free book and free video lesson, right? Be sure and subscribe to our videos here on YouTube. Click the subscribe button and go to our website. If you like stuff like this, I got over 1,300 video lessons and growing. We add new content every month. Lessons for beginners, intermediate, advanced players. nextlevelguitar.com. Total comprehensive structured guitar learning curriculum. I'm David Taub, co-creator Next Level Guitar. You're the good people. Take care and keep on rocking.
Down goes Fraser! Down goes Fraser!